Good morning. In the last 2 days, we talked a lot about regulations and supervision, and I'm happy to talk to you in my role as a supervisor about an important topic, which is greenwashing. I would like to start with a question. I don't want to be all fancy and technological, but maybe you can just raise your hands. Yesterday in the double conference, we heard a lot of the topics that have been talked about. One point was the question you discussed: how can oil companies be part of an ESG fund? I would like to ask the question: who thinks that oil company in an ESG fund must be greenwashing? What do you think? What's your personal opinion? It's just for you. You will ask me, is this greenwashing? And I would say it depends. So that would be my answer. It depends on the regulation. It doesn't necessarily mean that it is greenwashing when we're looking at the legal regulations and the legal frameworks at the moment. So I want to present to you what greenwashing is. I have 8 minutes to talk about this. I would like to mention one example on asset management, where we will look at the portfolio. I'm Georg Lehecka, and I have the honor to talk about sustainable finance and work on the topic of sustainable finance in the Financial Market Authority. Greenwashing has been a focus for us at the FMA for quite a while. Ever since 2021, it has been one of our focal points, because this is very important in terms of regulations, but also the content. There are two key tasks of our work. On the one hand, we have the risks in terms of sustainability, and on the other hand, how the financial market companies work with these risks. We already published a report on this in 2020 and updated it this year. And sustainable products boomed in the last years, which is good. So there are a lot of opportunities, but we have to look at the risks as well. We have to look at if the products actually are what they pretend to be. The first question is, what is greenwashing? As a supervisor, there is no legal definition of greenwashing. But as we have this booming market, in 2022, a commission, the ESAs wanted to find out more about greenwashing. There were 2 reports in 2024. What are the risks of greenwashing? Very interesting documents. But the 3 ESAs published a report on what greenwashing actually is. It means that what it says on the package has to be inside as well. It always depends on what is promised and what is said to the investors, and if it's actually carried through. So this is not only an environment topic, but it's not only about what is an ESG fund and what greenwashing is. It's a lot broader. So we're using greenwashing, and it's not only about green projects. It's all about ESG. It's about governance and social as well. But we're using the term greenwashing as we know what it refers to. So here we have the Austrian market and all investment funds of the last 3 years. And what I'd like to show you, that is the wealth of all funds. What I would like to highlight is 3 years ago, what you see in green, it's just a small part, around a third. And by now it has grown to a little bit over 50%. So it's not a niche any longer. It's become mainstream. So sustainability is in. But it doesn't always mean that every fund is sustainable. It's just they have sustainable criteria. So there's a very broad spectrum. And we have the Sustainable Finance Disclosure Regulation, which is only a disclosure regulation when you're looking at sustainable aspects. So that's really the only regulation we have, saying that the inside has to match the description. So there are not really any standards of standards and regulations on the market. So we have a lot of greenwashing in public funds. There are over 60%. We carried out many analyses. Here we have some figures. So you can look at these boxes. We looked the categorization of the funds. And the gray part has nothing to do with sustainability. The green boxes do. In the middle, the Austrian environmental label, which is important, and also the sustainability, depending on the fund's name on the right side. And you see the results. In the middle, with the environmental label, is working, but it depends very much on the fund, and there is greenwashing. So we're also analyzing the disclosure of these funds and the investment strategies. If they use ESG terminology, so what is their promise? How often ESG terminology is used? You see, the greener you are, the more obligated you are to invest in green shares. At the moment, the fund's names, and there is a new regulatory trend. We're looking at the public fund here. Different terms, ESG terms, sustainable terms, and also what has to do with social and governance, often in English. Funds usually don't have German names, so this is a very relevant sector. How do we look at this? In general, we're moving in the right direction. The analysis confirms it. But what do we do when we look at the individual funds? It's the same principle. What it says on the outside has to be inside. So what we did is come up with analytical requirements in order. Of course, we have an AI-based analysis methodology because there would be too many companies in Austria. We analyze the portfolios in terms of sustainability and do carry out a screening of quantities. And then at the end, we want to end with the corresponding measures so we can look at the certain individual funds. a good message is that we've been doing this for 2 years, and up until now, there has been no detection of greenwashing on purpose on the Austrian market, but there have been deficits when it comes to disclosure. So there have been measures that were implemented, but no greenwashing case. But I have to say our market is very precautious and very careful. They don't promise more than they should. And the last slide, what is new? There is no regulatory framework or standard, but there are new FMA guidelines when it comes to fund names. When can a fund include the ESG label? And at the moment we're in the implementation phase. In 5 days it has to be implemented, and there are basic rules. If you want to use environment, ESG, and so on in your name, at least 80% of the investments have to comply with this. So there are standards and directives in these terms, but we think it's just one step, because even if we had an SDFR review, we need more regulations and general regulation on the European level, at the European level, when you could actually call yourself an ESG fund or not. Because if we would have the regulations, there would be yes or no, but it would be definitely. So this is a core element. And this is regarding around 220 funds who are thinking about how to adapt to this, either their name or their investment strategy. Most of them don't change the name, but change the investment strategy. So this is a very positive development. In 5 days, this has to be implemented. You can find more details on the website. I don't have time for questions now, and I say thank you for your attention. Thank you.